That was the 1 second.
Sound check, how we doing on you Zoom folks?
No
Hello?
problem. We can hear you. I can hear
Oh.
you, Rosemary.
Okay. All right, welcome everybody. I'm David Lough, president of Downtown Sarasota Condominium Association, and Happy New Year to everybody. I'd like to send a special welcome to Commissioner Aaron Kopp, who's with us, and we certainly welcome you, Commissioner. I'm looking for a quorum. I think
We have it.
we
We have 10 members. We've got 6 here and 1 on.
Okay.
online, I believe.
Okay, all right, so let's, we've got a quorum here. And one thing I want to do is, off the bat, I'll recognize Clark Lauren is in the hospital. He's going to have surgery tomorrow, but I visited him this morning, so I think he's doing pretty well so far. So we'll be thinking about him and start surgery. So thinking of you, Clark. I want to apologize for the backup materials for the board. I thought it was going to go out yesterday. There was a hiccup with, in the system, and I did send it a few hours ago. I suspect maybe most of you didn't see some of this. So how many, did any of you see it? You saw it? Okay, all right. So the first order of business here is the approval of the minutes. Were there any comments or edits to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to,
So moved.
by Peter Fanning, and a second?
I second. Kathy Sellers seconds.
Okay, hi Kathy. And
Hi.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimously adopted. On the treasurer's report, as I said, Clark is out of pocket somewhat unexpectedly, so we don't have a normal treasurer's report. But Patrick, did you have some comments on the renewals?
Right, so we're right in the middle of the bulk of our renewals. Since we used to do all of them annually in January, that's still where the bulk of them are, all the, out of the condominiums so far, of our current 37 members, 22 have paid and 15 unpaid. A few of the condos and some of the associates were enthusiastic in their payments and paid when the first incorrect invoices went out. And we tried to correct that a couple days later, and we would hope that the approved membership fees for 2024 will be acknowledged by all of our members, as that's what will enable us to provide the planned services for the entire 2020. So we will endeavor to continue that. On the associate side, out of there, we have, out of 42 associates, we have 12 unpaid. Again, there's more of those that are on rotation because they come on and their annual renewal is whatever the date of when they first go in, annual date of that. So that is added to our coffers. So we don't have the exact number, but from that, I'm expecting that we will continue to generate the funds necessary to, especially for our first event coming up in March.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, Peter, would you like to make the introduction of our guest speaker?
Today, I'm honored to introduce a person I've known since I've moved here, really. It's one of the first people I met. And he was with the police department, so and at that time, I was getting interested in seeing what we could do with people without homes in downtown. And one of the persons I was told I should meet with is Captain Kevin Stitt of the police force. And Kevin and I started out well, even though we had diametrically opposed views with regard to people without homes. I wasn't quite to the place where everybody should have a home and it ought to be a right. And Kevin was, everybody without a home is gonna get arrested. And in fact, he told me, as I talked to him about bringing on social workers, et cetera, possibly, and he said, you know, Dr. Fanning, what I've got to tell you that we are really good at what we do. And I fell for it and said, what do you do? And he said, well, we're very good at arresting people, and that's what we're going to do. And over the course of time, he and I have come very close to having the same point of view. He was instrumental in making sure the initiation of the hot teams got in place correctly with the Sarasota Police Department. He eventually retired from the Sarasota Police Department, and lo and behold, he became the city's director of outreach for homeless programs. And he has been a real advocate of persons in need, not just those that are homeless, but persons with mental health and other needs. He's been a very compassionate person, and now he is compassionate again, filling the seat and holding it, not letting it get cold. He's the interim director of the Suncoast Partnership to End Homelessness. And I understand that may be coming to an end within the next 6 months, hopefully, as there is papers are out for recruiting doing a national recruitment for a director of Suncoast Partnership. I don't think the partnership would do poorly by continuing to employ Kevin Stiff. So Kevin, please make us look proud.
Well, thank you, Peter. It's not often that anybody introduces me and says they're honored to do so. But yes, I've been with the city, and I spent a lot of years with the city of Sarasota. Great place to work, did me very well. I am now currently with Suncoast Partnership to End Homelessness. Peter asked me to come talk to y'all about basically two things. He wanted to know about the pit count. The pit count is also referred to as the point in time count. It is a mandate on continuum of cares, and Suncoast Partnership is the collaborative applicant for our two-county area of Sarasota and Manatee County. So we are charged with conducting a pit count one day in January. We will do a snapshot of homelessness in our continuum of care. Our continuum of care being Manatee and Sarasota. We will have volunteers go out during that 24-hour period and contact as many homeless individuals that are willing to participate and see what the numbers look like. Again, it is a snapshot of what actually goes on. Individuals experiencing homelessness frequently move in and out of different places. They may be staying with friends and not available on the night of the pit count, or they may not interest, or we can't find them. There's many things that make the pit count not as reliable as we'd like, but the key to getting it very reliable is volunteers. If anybody would like to volunteer to assist on the 29th and 30th, most of it will be on the 29th. I'm sure Peter has a flyer for us, but the email address for the young lady working the pit count for us is Amy, A-M-I-E-E, at suncoastpartnership.org. We are trying something new this year for the first time. We are going to have an electronic pit count. We'll have backup available, but we're going to do it electronically on our phones through a partnership with Manatee County. They have allowed us the licenses to Argus, I believe is Argus or whatever that software is. They have allowed us to have a database with that, and we're going to use that in our two-county area. What that will allow us to do, be able to capture the information quicker. A lot of the information that is captured has to be sorted afterwards to make sure, since it goes over a time frame and you got numerous different individuals out, they can collect the same person's information 2 or 3 times. So a lot of that information and data has to be sorted, and then it all has to be sent to HUD, and HUD uses those numbers. Each year there's a report to Congress, and it comes out of that pit count, and it helps Congress make a decision on how much funding is needed. for homelessness response in our country. Anybody have any other questions about the PIT count?
So this process happens numerous, all over the country.
All
at
over the
the
United
same
States.
time.
Well, it doesn't have to be the exact same day. I mean, some communities, schedule it a week earlier, or a week later, depending on weather, depending, some circumstances, thunderstorms came in, a lot of things that would make it, a need to move it, but we try to do it on the same day. So those are things that also will vary, the response to the PIT count. If it's really, really cold, a lot of the people will be in shelters and are easier to count. If it's really warm, they're harder to find. We've heard recently from HUD saying there's a 12% increase in homelessness in our country. That a lot of that information does come from the PIT count. As you look at those numbers and those numbers are reported in our community, just understand that, again, it's a snapshot. Last year, not everybody around the country counted all the homeless individuals because of COVID. Or the year before that, 20, 21, and 22 have been tough years for PIT counts just because of the way the counts were done. 20, I don't think there was a PIT count. 21, they only counted sheltered homeless individuals. So different things go into what that number is. The important thing is we try to find trends. And a lot of those individuals that we use, we will spot as chronically homeless. We count them every year. So we know they continue to be in need. Any other questions about the PIT?
Beyond being a baseline, there's funding attached to that count as well in your application. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, each year, like I said, all of this goes into HUD, and HUD uses that to determine, our need. But many things go into how the money is distributed, system performance measures. There was a fallacy years ago that we needed to get a number as high as we could so they would send us as much money as we could. Well, the other side of that, HUD started saying, well, we need to see your system performance measures, right? How are you spending the money that we send you, and how well is that working? So that's all part of each year, usually in the end of summer, we put in what's called a NOFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity, goes to HUD. The numbers from our PIT count and our system performance measures all combined, and HUD will determine to send us, they call it your annual renewal. This is what you get every year, or then there may be additional funds. This year, we hope to receive from HUD about $1.5 million, and possibly another $1 million, or not $1 million, another $500,000 on top of that if additional funding becomes available. So that funding, Suncoast Partnership in Homelessness, is the leadership organization for our continuum of care. So that funding comes to us, and we give it out to the community. It isn't, Suncoast Partnership doesn't get the $2 million. We work with it, and we talk about, and I said, how do we spend the money? We, as Suncoast Partnership, help develop our continuum of care. There is a leadership board that looks at everybody that wants to provide housing, homeless services and housing for homeless individuals in our two-county area. And at some point, that board sends out what's called an RFP and says, HUD gave us $2 million. We want your ideals on how to do rapid rehousing and how to do permanent supportive housing and how to do diversion and prevention services. Send us your ideals or your contracts, what you say you're going to do for us, and that continuum of care leadership board looks at those and say, we're going to fund these projects. And then we make sure that those programs are funded through the HUD dollars, and we watch those contracts. That's what Suncoast does as a continuum of care. And those funds go out to them. We spend the money, and we report back to HUD how that money was spent.
We have a question from Kathy Sellers. What are the hours that the point-in-time survey occurs? And is it just in the city or county?
It's in our two-county area, Sarasota and Manatee County. It starts at noon on the 29th and ends at noon on the 30th.
It's Jen.
January, yes, 29th.
And there is a, well, there was, your website is under construction.
Yes.
There was on the website a form you could click on and register.
Yes, but now you, with Amy, that email address with Amy, that'll.
Right, and I talked to Amy and said I was going to run this off, Amy. And so this address, Amy, at suncoastpartnership.org, if you send her an email, she will respond back to you on how you can register. And I know that a couple of board members have already registered to participate.
It'll be safe.
And it does include training and show you how to use your iPhone for this count. And you won't be sent out alone to go anyplace that you go and come.
It will give you an opportunity to engage individuals you frequently pass by. And you can learn some of their stories.
Is there a time window of 4 hours or X or?
Well, you can volunteer for what
Sure.
works for you, yes. Amy will be able to, she puts together the teams that go out and puts you with someone that, you know, if you're not experienced, with someone that's experienced, and she'll put you on a team and say, dude, go to these places and see what you can find. Yes, ma'am.
David, can I ask a question? Is there another city commissioner in the meeting?
No, I don't believe so.
Can I just add some information to Kevin's presentation?
Do I?
Can,
Can I just add a little bit of information to Kevin's presentation?
sure.
Okay.
So just real
This is
quick,
totally
please.
impromptu and just 2 minutes. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Quick,
So-
please, yeah.
Very quickly, from a commission standpoint, this is really important for us as a commission to have this information. I really want to share something that I shared with some of the county commissioners and some of the citizens. In 2015, the city did a point-in-time count. So this is just in the city, right? So the whole count was done, and for the city of Sarasota, in 2015, we had 1,106 homeless folks or unsheltered folks in the city of Sarasota. Then Susan Porchot did a study in 2017 and talked about how we can coordinate our services, which Kevin was instrumental in all of this work. And that's where we decided to have the coordinated entry system with the Suncoast Partnership to End Homelessness. All the organizations coordinated, worked together to help. We have our hot teams, we trained our police department. We are lauded throughout the country, our police department, in how we handle our homeless, our unsheltered folks. So we had 1,106 folks in 2015. You fast forward to 2021, we had 138 homeless folks in the city of Sarasota in 2021, which means we reduced our homeless population by 88% in 6 years. It's a model in the country, the way we're doing things. And this point in time count helps us establish and sort of measure where we are with us and where we are in the country. And if you want to translate that to dollars, it costs $31,065 in 2014 to keep somebody on the street. If you translate those dollars to today, it equals $40,000 a person to keep them on the street. And so what we are doing is we are trying to make best use of our dollars. If you only want to talk about dollars, that's a big piece of this, is that it is by far more cost effective to house people and put a roof over their head and give them dignity than it is to keep them on the street. And with Kevin, our police department, Suncoast Partnership, and all of the services that are working together and coordinating are doing a phenomenal job. And our police department, and Kevin can speak more about this, is getting accolades throughout the country for the way that we are handling this program. So this count is really important for the city.
Is that count in the city only, or is it the two counties?
It's the two counties.
Two counties.
But those numbers I gave were for the citizens of the city, because you can break it down to the homeless population and where they are. So those numbers I gave of 1,106 in 2014, and then fast forward to an 88% reduction, That's city.
Kevin, is there anything, point more on the point in time? Were there any more questions?
Well, I mean, that was the first part. I'd like to talk about the next topic,
Okay.
which is the funding that we, Suncoast Partnership for the past several months has been in working with Sarasota County. They were talking about not funding our CSIS and our COC programs that we get funding from each year. CSIS is Community Services Information System, and COC is Continuum of Care. It's like I said, Suncoast Partnership to End Homelessness is not the COC. We are the collaborative applicant. We are the backbone, basically. And the Continuum of Care is a leadership group, our commissioner group, that says, this is how you'll function in our two-county area. This is how our agenda works. This is what we're going to do to solve homelessness. And without that, everybody says the problem to homelessness is there's no sharing of information, right? Well, without a continuum of care, there's no sharing of information. I would say if you want to reduce homelessness in your community, you have to have things, certain things. The city of Sarasota is an example of what works. City Commission has been supporting the city's response to homelessness since 2014. Okay, and it has reduced homelessness greatly. Okay, that support, of course, in dollars and in speech, has been part of the system we've set up. I say all the time, ending homelessness in your community is not finding everybody a home. Okay, because the funding is not there, just the housing isn't there, and everybody doesn't want it at the same time. So the answer is a path to housing in your community for individuals that want to get on it. Not everybody wants to get on the path to ending homelessness at the same time. Me and Peter had that discussion years ago. Not all the individuals we contact, and I still believe not every individual contacted by a police officer or an outreach team is ready to go to housing. Well, I don't disagree with them. It is your right to live homeless. It is also a right of the city and every other individual to enjoy the city. For those that, as I told Peter, those individuals that say, okay, I'm gonna remain homeless in your community, we don't say that's criminal, but if you want to break our laws in our community, we'll take action. But in that process, the city is also, and Sarasota City is the first city in the state of Florida that put together a community care court, which is for individuals that are homeless that get involved in illegal behavior, and then gives them another opportunity to get housing and reservices. But a continuum of care that they weren't going to fund is also required by HUD. I talk about that $2 million that comes to our community. If your community does not have a collaborative applicant, no one is to put in the NOFA. No money comes for your community. The $2 million does not include the millions of dollars that come from the state and the funding that comes from the counties and the funding that comes from the city and our community. So with the county discussing not funding that would have meant millions of dollars would not have come to our community to reduce homelessness. And then they weren't going to fund our community service information system. Community service information system, for a simple term, it's a database. And it is the backbone. If everybody in here was a homeless person, David walked into a service provider anywhere in our community and sat down in a chair and said, I need services. The person talking to him, the outreach worker, would put their number in there, his name in there, and say, hey, David, I see you're working with Peter Fanning, a case manager at Manatee County. He needs to contact you. Or I see that you were previously housed, or I see you need medical attention, or I see you have family. All of that information is available, so we don't have to start all over with David in his homeless response. We don't have to build the system each day. We know, okay, you need to contact your driver's license organization. You don't have to go to every one of those places and try to get that. We already have that information available for you. That is why you can reduce if you start from scratch, if I was going to house David from scratch without CSIS, it's going to take at least 9 months. Because most individuals that are homeless do not have all the information available to them they need to get housed. Where's your birth certificate? I don't know, I lost it. Where's your ID card? Don't know, I lost it. Where's your, what's your disability? I don't know, I lost it. Okay, well, we're gonna start from scratch, right? And all of those meetings have to be made, and that person has to make all those meetings. CSIS links the individual to his history and links us to his life. Anywhere in our community, if David was to show up, yes, I can see. Or Peter calls and says, I need to find David. Well, let me check my computer. Yeah. David was up at Turning Points last night. Actually, he gets his mail there. So if you would like to contact him, go on up there and we'll contact Turning Points. And when he comes in, we'll give him your number so he can call you. That is what the database is. Is it cheap? No. Because what does everybody know? I'm sure the commissioner can tell you, when you have a database, you have a security threat. And we have to pay for the same thing that everybody else has to pay for. Keep all that data safe. Have to train everybody how to use it. Have to retrain everybody how to use it. And all the people that come and go in our community have to be entered. And all the organizations have to train someone. They have to come to us to train their people how to use the organization. So they talked about not funding that. Fortunately, through conversations with the commissioners, many people and many friends that we have had numerous conversations with commissioners.
County commissioners.
The county commissioners, yes. County commissioners had many conversations with county commissioners, and the county commissioners did fund us at $175,000. And we had hoped to have $225,000, but they did fund us at $175,000. So what does that mean? Well, as Peter said earlier, I see your website's under construction. Well, our website is under construction. We're $50,000 website under construction problem. Those things happen when you don't get, everybody runs a business. The first thing that happens when we just now received we don't even have the contract signed yet for the funding, but we're already into January. So our budget year started in October, so we're bouncing balls in the air, figure out what do we get the money, right? So that we couldn't hire some employees that we recently hired to replace other employees that had left. So that's now happening. The nice thing that Sarasota County did do was they funded 2 diversion specialists for our organization. And one of the things that Susan Porchio's group did back in 2017, put together the things that are important to reduce the homeless in your community that Suncoast Partnership helps manage. You have outreach, diversion, prevention, shelter, rapid rehousing, and permanent supportive housing. The cheapest way not to have to pay $35,000 a year to rehouse them or put someone on the street, the cheapest way to do that is through prevention and diversion. Number 1, right? So the county did fund that, thank them. And I don't get me wrong, the county provided us the funding after much input from many friends. But the other important thing is it's that we as a community need to make sure, and Suncoast needs to make sure everybody understands how important Suncoast Partnership, the Continuum of Care, and CSIS is. That's the real, we have to make sure everybody understands how important it is to reducing homelessness in our community.
That's great, Kevin, and that's a good presentation, and we all need to work harder at making sure we don't take Suncoast Partnership and the programs for granted. I think they're running so well sometimes that we forget that there is a great deal of effort going on behind the scenes to keep this under control and improve the system all along the road. And thank you for your leadership, and thank you for appearing before us today. And
I just have one question. The new Sarasota Memorial Hospital mental health facility, I don't know exactly what it's called. What's your take on what's your hope on how helpful that might be to your efforts?
Well, we do not currently have a relationship relationship with them in that manner as it relates to Suncoast Partnership. But the important thing as a community is 75% of the individuals that are homeless have some type of mental health they're dealing with. Our communities, many of our communities have given their police departments, I know we started in the city and the counties have picked it up. All the officers get training on mental health. All the police or fire departments get training on dealing with individuals. The important thing is to give individuals that are in crisis, that are on our streets, opportunities to get treatment or divert them before they get to crisis, right? Nobody wants to see them in crisis. So our community understanding that mental health is an issue that needs to be dealt with is very important, right? That many of the individuals that remain chronically homeless on our streets are chronically homeless because they continually live in crisis. And until we can get them out of that crisis mode, we're not going to be able to make progress with housing. Yes, sir.
Kevin, is dementia a part of that problem with mental health? Is that a component that you look at?
Well, we would definitely call that mental health, but I don't know that it would be any different than any other mental health issues that we encounter. We do have some, I'm often surprised when we're at one of the outreach meetings and doing the case conference and the number of people that are in their 70s and 80s that are homeless and suffering.
Brain injury is a component of homelessness, often the result of overuse and abuse of addictive drugs and alcohol. And so there are dementia-like symptoms that many of these people have as a result of their past behaviors for quality.
And could you expound on that? Because in the way that all of this is kind of spoken about, do you put addiction as a category of mental illness, or is it kept separate such that there are this portion of people who have mental illness, e.g. something like schizophrenia, and then these people who don't have that, but they are addicted to street drugs, etc.? How is this kind of
Well, I'll refer you to two people, the doctor. But the only point that really comes in is when we talk about chronically homeless individuals.
Yeah.
To be chronically homeless, you have to have some disability. And whether or not addiction, I believe addiction is now classified as a mental health issue.
Yeah.
So that would be one of the class, an individual that's chronically homeless has to be homeless on the street for 2 years and have some but some disability. Often it is mental disabilities, but it could be physical disabilities. So those things are taken into place as it relates to getting dollars. Everybody understands that Sarasota or Suncoast Partnership is a housing first. We believe in housing first. Housing first is not, many people say housing first doesn't work because you just give homeless people houses and walk away. That is not how housing first works. Housing first is a walking relationship for the first year. You try to put someone in housing with good case management. They walk together for that first year, so hopefully by the end of that year, the client is able to sustain either through because they have now enough income and they are able to sustain on their own without constant relationship. So that's housing first. But the important part you're talking about as it relates to mental illness and addiction is the individuals need to go to permanent supportive housing because we know they are never going to be able to sustain on their own. For whatever reason, they're never going to be able to have enough money, or they're going to need support to keep them housed. So that's the big distinction as we move in our community when, there's just not enough permanent supportive housing for individuals that are never going to be able to sustain on their own.
Thank you, sir.
All right, well, the last thing, as Peter talked about earlier, the CEO's position is posted. And we We are looking for someone in the nationwide search that has the skills to take the organization for the next 3 to 5 years. I took the intern position because Suncoast Partnership and the Continuum of Care are truly the backbone of all the things that have happened in Sarasota and Manatee County over the past, since 2014. There's been a lot of work, a lot of progress made. I would hate to see all that slip backwards as we wait for someone else to lead us. If you want to be a CEO. Thank you for your time.
We appreciate your time and what you do. So,
All right, I will leave a couple of cards up here. If anybody wants to reach out to me later. there's a couple cards.
okay, thank you. Moving along, the next item is the Atlas Insurance. Atlas Insurance, as I understand, is Atlas Insurance, is it here? They are, we're gold, platinum members in the membership.
Years ago.
A couple years ago, and they have reapplied, shall we say, to become, and there are no platinums available, so they're applying to be a gold member. Is there any discussion about that? To approve. Motion to
Second.
approve. Second down there, all in favor?
Aye.
Welcome back, Atlas. Okay, no old business, president's report. There is one heck of a lot going on at City Hall. Between zoning text amendments and workshops, it just seems, I've been working indirectly with this for 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm not recalling anything close to what's going on now. I think as we get into the rest of each individual agenda, we can talk a little bit about what's happening. But from time to time, I'm going to encourage, I might put a timestamp at the city commission meeting and suggest you not watch all 4 or 5 hours, but there are some very interesting spots. I think this morning I sent around to a lot of you this transcript of the discussion about sound from Mr. Promenade, which is new development history. That said, Kathy, as far as a city update, you got anything in particular to report?
Other than the email that you sent out, I think you kind of hit the sound ordinance. And of course, we have the workshop that's coming up regarding the parking proposals that are coming up next week. But other than that, and I'm sure we'll talk, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about more of the sound, or do we just kind of want to leave that sit for right now?
Well, let me just talk a little bit about that. What I sent around is the sound revision of the sound ordinance has been under discussion a couple of years. I don't know, it's been a while. And I was a little bit pleasantly surprised yesterday to see Bob Fournier come back and say that he wants to come back for discussion on February 20th. The thing I'm frankly not quite understanding is that's when the second reading of the ZTAs for restaurant, bars, and nightclubs may be coming back. And I, at the moment, am not understanding how that dovetails. But let's just say that Bob, in his remarks yesterday, and it's in that transcript, he talked about 5 things he would be wanting to discuss on the 20th, and some things he wasn't going to deal with because it would just be vehicular noise, I think was one of the ones that he wanted to push.
Yes.
Is the wrong word, is to state legislation and so forth. But I think it's a real positive development that that is coming back for this discussion. So stay tuned on that. long time coming, but seems like he's committed to bring something forward. As far as the other big, in a sense, big thing that is coming back on as a downtown matter is on a planning board meeting on the 10th. The Obsidian is coming back, their appeal of the development services rejection, and they're asking for 2 adjustments. So that is going to be, kind of front and center, I think. That meeting starts at 11 a.m. and I expect to bring a sandwich because that one's going to go on a while. We'll see that in the press. The DSCA position that we took with board buy-in at the time last June, if I'm not mistaken, was DSCA did not support the grant, the approval of the exceptions, and that had to do with the habitable space and the facade area. There were 2 exceptions that were being requested.
Retail.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there's a, if I'm not mistaken, there's a 38% exception, so to speak, they're asking for. And it's my view that that should be the continuing DSCA position, that we don't support the exceptions. And I don't know, is there a discussion on that? I know some people are objecting to the project because of its height and other elements of it, but that they have complied, even though it was kind of a loophole on this interstitial space. But I think that that's a weaker argument, if you will, but to not grant exceptions of 38%, I think is founded objective position based on that it's not complying with zoning. Discussion on that, Ken, Roger, anybody have a view?
No.
Okay, so with, I don't know if it's appropriate to ask for concurrence on this, Peter, or a motion that the DSCA position essentially remains unchanged and that we do not support the granting of the exception.
We've already had that motion before the board and it passed. The only motion you need now is if somebody wanted to rescind that motion. It's in
It
the record.
prevails.
Yeah.
There's nothing from the zoning committee to say, get down either, right?
No, not at this point. Can I make one comment on that?
Sure.
And then, just speaking on behalf of the Zoning Committee. Just briefly, you guys have done a wonderful job over the span of the last 2 months. Meeting on a almost seems sometimes daily basis to try to keep up with all of this. This is a remarkable experience for me personally, stepping on this board for the first time. And I just hope that if this is a committee of the whole that we have, which it seems like, that other members of the committee should likely become involved as we talk this through. The complexities of Zeta, the confusion that's going on with so many people contacting us or talking about us, frankly, I find very troubling. But at the same time, some of the individual work like Peter Blanton, the wonderful letter he sent out, protects us all, but also puts us in a position. So many people in this community are calling us day and night about what our positions are going to be. So if you want to be a part of the zoning committee,
If you want
And
to
here
stay up
with
all
these
night.
regular ongoing conversations. I welcome it, and I apologize for being late. We just got back from traffic.
That's no problem. So, and Victor, thank you for jumping into this zoning stuff. I know Patrick has been helpful in dropping off some reading material.
That's
So-
an inside joke Patrick brought to me about 40 pounds to read, which I have gotten through and still can't figure out. Many.
Okay. Well, good. On the Obsidian, then, it's agreed that we will proceed on course, and I'm authorized to act accordingly. So, by the way, on that, if I understand, help me understand this, I have applied for affected persons status on the Obsidian matter, and there is an opportunity to do that. Me as the representative of a neighborhood, quote unquote, association. So that would give me additional time to speak and additional rights, so to speak. So just heads up on that.
Speaking of which, at some point, we should look at how to do an educational piece on such things such as affected parties and how downtown residents lose much of those property rights that other city residents have for asserting their affected parties. That typically when community workshops are held, the notices and the invitation is to affected parties. Anyone can attend, but the people who get the notices are the affected party, people who, residents within 500 feet or head of a neighborhood association. And so community workshops and such things like that aren't just for masses to talk. It is for here, but the people most directly affected by the construction and or the results will be. And for those results, questions and answers to be retained and made available should ever something arise down the road for the planning board or city commission to ever have to weigh in that. So that those first public comment, first neighborhood impacted comments are a part of the record. So this is an important aspect. I'm glad to see some focus on it.
Okay. Moving along to Arts and Cultural Committee. Ken, what have you got for us this one?
I have a couple of things. On January 9th at 10 a.m., there will be a ribbon cutting for Selby Gardens Phase 1 Master Plan completion. They have temporary occupancy permits for the entire project except for the restaurant, but they expect to have that occupancy permit within a week. The solar array on the roof is not in place of the parking garage because of a supply chain issue. So they've been repeatedly assured that they would get them on a certain date, and it never happened. So that's still something up in the air. That little park that belongs to the city, just to the north of the wall of the gardens, is being worked on today. They were putting irrigation in today, and they already have a pathway and a bench in there, so I expect that will be finished soon too for public use. Interestingly, today I received a press release from the Climate Adaptation Center, and they have nominated Jennifer Romanecki for an award as a Climate 2024 Climate Champion because of her work at the gardens. And they have said that her leadership at Selby Gardens has resulted in the building of a modern climatized campus in Sarasota that is state-of-the-art, that adapts to a climate that has already changed. It has also lowered the risk of her institution from the negative impacts of a warming climate right here in Sarasota. The Phase 1 upgrades the facilities and lowers the risks from climate disruptions, including sea level rise, storm surges from increasingly frequent major hurricanes, extreme precipitation, and heat, as well as taking major steps to lower the carbon footprint the Selby facilities. That'll be very interesting to see what happens. And David, I have been in touch with Marty Hilton. I haven't gotten an answer from him, but I contacted him about a March 20th participation in our workshop about the speaker series that they're doing. I've got my ticket for the 24th because I'm dying to hear Andreas Duani's comments about what we've done over the last few years with the new urbanist zoning.
Good.
That's it.
All right, then moving ahead, Jamie, on the events side of things.
Annika, maybe Annika, give us an update?
So we're looking to plan our March up here. Yes. We're working for,
Come around in front and tell people the dates and where we are with plans.
Yeah, just here would probably be good, so you get the fisheye looking at.
yes, I was not planning. So, okay, wait, we're having our first, we have two seminars coming up this year. One is March 20th, I believe, is that on Thursday. We have some great speakers that we're working on. So it's just gonna be about 2024, the future of it and how to keep it sustainable. And do we want to discuss some of the?
I'm behind in lining up the speakers, but we're certainly, one of the themes here, of course, is it will follow that speakers series. So we want to kind of dovetail, if you will, on a continuum of, building on what comes out of that or doesn't. There could be some fairly significant things. So that's to keep a momentum up.
That Thursday in March 21st.
21st, thank you. Yeah, so we'll be getting the flyer out soon. We're working on some edits and so you guys enjoy.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm holding up the show on some of them on my to-do list, so be a little bit patient on us getting the speakers lined up. We had a session last Friday, I guess, with Patrick and Jamie and the ball, and some of this is in my court trying to line up a quite interesting panel. Got to get on it. Moving on, green space, Patrick?
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Homeless, I think we got anything?
No, I think we've done in the homeless today.
Okay. And then, health and safety, the city watch, is there anything really to say?
No, this has all been in limbo for the holiday period.
Right.
Pick it back up.
Okay. And then,
I'm sorry, question. You were, the last time, the notes, and you were planning to contact some residents, some other condos. Were you successful in reaching any one or two?
Yes, we're talking to two condos and another individual who's interested in getting involved.
Thank you.
on transportation, really, the parking is being, Peter, you've been working on that, is part, and you circulated, I circulated around late this parking proposal. What's happening is, Broxton Harvey is doing a workshop, on the 8th.
So it's a city commission workshop, and he's going to do
Right.
a presentation
Yeah.
to the city commission with the staff recommendations with regard to the proposed changes in the parking situations from A to Z.
David, do you want to do a discussion? I can push that on the screen. You want to get
Oh, sure.
parking proposal discussion?
While Patrick's doing that, let me just also say that the workshop on January 8th is not just on parking. There's another component to this workshop on January 8th, and that needs to be the planning department presenting the attainable housing text revisions and future housing land use at that workshop as well. And so I don't know if this is going to be an all-day thing, or people believe that these are going to be said and done and moved on. Remembering that a workshop is for the opportunity for city commissioners to meet with staff and have an open discussion, something that they're not able to do in groups because of the sunshine law. And as a result of that, the public can listen and attend, but cannot speak. So often what happens is on an issue like the parking proposal, we at the DSCA try to get a comprehensive piece of information into each commissioner in the form of a letter. And that's what I'd like to discuss today. I'd like to, if not get approval today, hopefully quickly, I understand that some people obviously haven't had time to read this. It's 3 pages. And I've decided, hopefully, to make it easier for the commissioners as well as you to do this in 2 parts. And that's to draft a cover letter that is short, telling the commissioners what we would like to do and why, and then a 2-page analysis of the proposals being suggested by Broxman Harvey, the director of parking for the city, with his recommendation and our comment with regard to that regulation. So basically, what we're talking about here is that we're going to comment on the regulations being proposed, and we're going to add some information for them to consider while they're looking at this, because it's not just about the regulations, but the impact and what happens with these regulations and what happens later. And we're going to want to have the city commissioners be aware that these should be talked about and thought about in light of a phrase that generates a lot of enthusiasm lately: mobility for a more engaged community, and the impact these will have on community engagement. And what I'm talking about there is achieving, whenever possible, making progress toward adding to the inventory of complete walkable streets in a greener city. Some of these regulations have an impact on our walkable streets, the size of where cars are parked, where garages are available, where trees should be planted for walkable cities and so forth. So we're asking that not only do you look at the very operational mechanics of how do you park a car and what do you charge and how long can they park, but there's a broader impact that's going on at this time, and we'd like the city commissioners to be aware of that, which I know they are. Also keeping in mind the role that future transportation alternatives will have on these proposals, and we want them to understand that we support the reducing reliance on personal cars and enhancement for park and walk activities as well. And lastly, but possibly most important, we want the city commissioners to think about and possibly act at a future date. They can't take any action in a workshop, obviously. To come up with a designated budget category. Right now, any excess monies, revenue derived from these parking regulations, and there's been wild numbers. Hopefully there's been some analysis behind them, but it could be anywhere from, I don't know, 1.8, 2.2, $3.2 million in excess revenue being generated by these changes over a period of time. So we suggest that a budget category be established that limits the use of any excess revenue generated by the parking division as a result of these parking changes, recommended and adopted to be used only for transportation enhancements that supplement the movement of people and increasing the access to businesses and public amenities. In other words, don't let this fall to the bottom line and become something to fund unrelated activities and businesses, when we still have such need for continuing to move people and bring them closer to the amenities for such things as maybe reinstitution of some kind of an I-ride system. I call it I-ride, but that's what I would be with. I understand that from the meeting I went through this morning that possibly the county is in negotiations with the same company that is doing the water taxi in Manatee County, and looking at how they might be able to become involved to bring it to Lido and someplace downtown, maybe it's to the Bay. First time I've heard that. Now, maybe other people have heard that, but I haven't heard that. And if that takes money to help move people and make it easier for people to get around, I think that the investment of this money would go a long way. So that would be in the cover letter, and attached would be our position on the parking proposal. And you need to read through this. I'm going to spend just a little bit of time because there's a couple here that the way Broxton Harvey laid this out, he made a proposal like extending parking enforcement from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Right now it ends at 8 p.m. and the recommendation is the commission approve and implement February 2024 that recommendation. Our comment on this one is let me tell you where I got the comment. I've been talking to people downtown. I've been talking to people at the DSA, at the various places about how they sense this, and trying to coalesce their responses into a position that I think DSCA wants to take the leadership on. We say that the impact of this recommendation is controversial and needs to be reviewed for its impact on restaurants and other leisure time businesses before being approved. I talked to the business owners, and they say, this is not a good thing, that people come in here and they park at 8 o'clock, sure, but they stay until 10, 12, and tourists expect not to have to go out to parking meters and keep anteing up or using the app, which and but one that we would approve is the Sunday parking enforcement. If you walk around on Sundays, you find people parked in front of hydrants, in handicap parking spots that are restricted, and they don't have the necessary license or permit to park there. They park in fire lanes. They park unlooked at in alleys and so forth. So Sunday parking enforcement, we think that's probably a pretty good idea, Commission, and we think the Commission ought to approve that. So as you go through these, you'll find various things that we're looking at.
Peter, can I ask you, are these, when do we want to have these completed?
Well, the City Commission meets on Monday.
Okay.
So I was hoping that today, because you would have had enough time to review these position statements, that we could get some action on it, even if it required some changes, so I could get this letter out tomorrow to the commission, so they could have it in their packet on Friday, which I think comes out at about that time.
Because there were a couple on here that I saw that I had questions on, and I noticed that I was able to put comment on and send it back to the person who, I was able to make a comment. I don't know if it could be a working document between us, but there were some that I had questions on, and the position that we have, not necessarily, I don't know that we talked about it, or maybe we need to have some discussion on it. So did you want to go through them line item?
That's fine. Let me just say that what I had proposed to the board is that I would try to get a consensus. Well, I get an opinion, at least, in some direction, one way or the other, from a variety of groups, and based on what I hear from residents and what I've heard from business owners, property owners, and so forth. That's how I formulated our position. No, we do not disagree, but that's what I'm hoping we can do today. So yes, go ahead and ask your questions.
Well, I think there is one there, the waiver removal. I was really unclear as to what that was, and I think, David, you had alluded to that as well. The city manager approves and removes the waiver program immediately. I don't know what that waiver meant. What waiver are we talking about there? That was one of my questions.
That waiver, let me see if I can get that.
We're going to take them in order here, and we
can.
We've got them on the screen here so people can follow the screen while I'm suggesting.
Oh, all right.
And on your last one there, the Sunday parking enforcement.
Right.
So what you're meaning is that they would have parking personnel
That's right.
out roaming the streets.
That's right.
And in order to pay for those personnel,
Right.
we would have to implement the parking limits so that you would no longer have free parking on Sundays.
No, no, that does not involve free parking on Sundays. Sundays, as I understand it, would still be free. This is for people who actually are in violation of city standards already, like parking in front of a hydrant.
No, I understand that. I'm saying, I
But
thought,
it's not to extend the days into Sunday.
okay,
That's my
I thought I
understanding.
heard differently when it was first presented. So, okay, so it's
Well,
only
at
the
any rate.
enforcement, not the change in when the free parking is there.
Right.
Okay, that's the case. 'Cause I know some of the restaurants need that on Sundays because they don't have as many other people and some are closed, but those are open. So anyway, go ahead. Yeah, so we have some other ones.
Well, let's take them by order then. That's staff, vote downtown metered parking expansion by 103 spaces. City, the recommendation is the city to perform survey and revisit in 18 months. I think that's probably a pretty good recommendation. And so I'm saying DSCA would approve that recommendation. The next one is St. Armand's 2-hour parking, city to perform survey and revisit in 18 months. That's the same timeline, and again, I think we ought to approve that recommendation, and at the same time elicit public input along with the performance of the survey. It's not just enough to get input on a survey, but to discuss that forum. The next one, reduce the 2-hour grace period to 30 minutes. Commission to approve education for 2 hours to 1 hour. I think that I think that this was primarily aimed at the parking garages and the 2-hour spaces available now. I want to make
Well, that's the one that I actually had the question about as well, because if you're, go ahead. I'm not understanding.
They want to, from my understanding of this recommendation, they want to reduce the 2-hour grace period where it is now to 1 hour. But they want to reduce the Palm Avenue and State Street garage to 30 minutes. And possibly 1 hour. I'm trying to get a clarification on that. Oh, that's right. They want to reduce that to 1 hour as well. And I've said pretty much that should remain as a 2-hour grace period in the garages, if not on the streets.
And why is that, Peter? What is your reasoning for that? Your thought behind that?
I think a lot of people park in the garage.
80% don't pay.
Pardon?
80% park less than 2 hours.
Okay. I don't have that statistic, but.
At least that was the one transmitted to me, that 80% pull into the garage and leave the garage without paying.
For the 2 hours. This is
Under the 2 hours.
within the last couple of years.
Yeah,
Or is-
I'm talking about Palmer Avenue and, yeah.
So is that a bad thing? If they have 2 hours shopping downtown or 2 hours eating at a restaurant, or is that a bad thing? I mean, should you
Gets
charge
cars off
people
the
for that
street.
privilege?
It gets cars off the street.
Gets cars off the street, that's.
Whereas, putting in place the street fee, what you're suggesting there is that it can change the street fee, but leave the garages at 2 hours.
Right. But that was, we did it a little bit backwards. We tried to drive people to not park on the street, so we originally had a 2-hour and continue the 2 hour in the garages. But I think that they realized that probably the 2-hour parking is maybe long, but I think it still benefits the businesses. The restaurants especially want to keep the 2-hour.
It doesn't sound like a good business proposition to me. That you really ought to have people paying to help support that system. And that, leaving it 2 hours, well, I have to.
Well, let me tell you what's, I did this presentation with another group this morning. And one of the people said, you know, I drive downtown to get to this meeting. And he said, and I come down to downtown, probably twice a week to have lunch. He said, and part of the reason is I don't have to pay, because I pass 4 or 5 restaurants like Chipotle and I don't know, Red Pepper or whatever it is, and I could just pull in there to lunch rather than come down and have to pay to go to lunch. And he said also, he also brought up the issue of Lakewood Ranch, which I don't think is you know, I don't think, I think we've learned that Lakewood Ranch can operate on their own terms, and we can do a very good job ignoring it, but they do out there for the most part. I don't know, we're recording this, right?
Roger, I guess one of the other questions, goes back to when it was first presented to our meeting here, was the revenues, going back to the proposal that was put together by Mark Lyons from the committee that you sat on, and there was revenue projections. If we put in place these meters, et cetera, and drive people to the garages that we wanted up there, this will generate X amount of revenue in so many years, St. Armand, et cetera. So now, 3 to 5 years later, what revenue is being generated and what delta is expected from these changes?
Well, one of the deltas would be that you would have money to finance other kinds of transportation as a source of income. You know, for example, the trolley, St. Armand's no longer contributes to the operation of the trolley, was the diminishment of the disappearance of their down their bid. And so does that come out of the regular city budget? We have one of the items here saying that the income should be focused some portions on improving transportation structures. Well, one of the sources of that income could be the parking garage, where 80% of them, as you said, Peter's guy doesn't want to come downtown. It doesn't seem unreasonable that we shouldn't have to pay something with that now.
I just think from the perspective of when the parking meters and so forth were put in, there was financial budgets behind that, projections. And now another major change is coming through, like no financial updates. So this is what was projected. Here's what the actual been for the last 5 years. And by making these changes, you know, here's the changes. We expect these will generate X revenues. And I think that would allow people to say, aha, yes, from X amount of revenue. But if it's only going to generate an extra few $1,000s, that's not going to fund much. So that's, I think we're having a financial understanding of these impacts would be good.
We're having a time issue here. So what, Peter, this is,
Well, get your comments to me and,
yeah.
But I'd just like to, I'm going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm hearing that, that there isn't, I don't know, how much support is there to reduce, for this, approve the recommendation for Palm Avenue and State Street Garage? The recommendation for on-street parking at 1 hour and the 2 garages at 2 hours. How much is there support for that? Because I'm not.
Reduce it from 2 to 1.
But keep 2 at the garages. I heard you say you don't like that. Okay. Anyone else?
I just wanted a better understanding, is what I was trying to understand that.
Well, I think it's an inducement and an enhancement.
Okay.
Those garages built strategically to support basically restaurants and entertainment things. There isn't much else around there. You don't park in a garage for 2 hours to go to a bank that's around the corner. You do that because you want to go to the restaurants.
I'm conflicted because, you know, if they go to a mall, they're not going to pay for parking. If they're coming downtown, they're going to pay for parking unless we provide some incentive for them to come downtown. And I think the paid parking reduces that incentive. So I like the position where we have 2 hours free in the garage, because it frees up spaces on the street, because it moves cars from the street into the garages. It also provides an incentive that the city has to understand they pay for. The city, it's a cost to the city to get people to come down. Now, but I also understand the issue of the cost to the city and what that is. And I'm not sure, I agree with you, Patrick. I'm not sure what that is. I don't understand what that is. I don't think that's been created.
Okay.
The one
Well,
other
so-
thing too, Peter, that I wanted just to mention, I know there was got a little lively discussion regarding monthly employee parking. And I'll send something to you, but just to understand this, was there something different between the red type and the blue type? Was that supposed to be different or delineate 2 different types of groups?
The blue comments are from Broxton. The red comments are also, but I just copied, pasted.
Okay, all right, okay.
Those are the staff proposals. And it looks like the blue may be approvals. How did you mention it? And something else happens, staff proposals that they don't approve or delay is in red.
Okay, again.
Okay.
One last thing.
Yeah, okay.
The waiver. The waiver is pretty difficult to understand. The waiver is I have the notes here is that parking waivers and appeals to eliminate the first offense. When you got a parking ticket and it was the first time you were using the parking, remember when we were just initiating this thing, it was you could appeal that ticket and get it waived because you didn't understand you had to pay for parking and that kind of thing. So that's what that waiver program was. So what they're proposing here on the waiver is implement, let's see, city manager to approve and remove the waiver program immediately. So in the discussion I've had with the resident business property owners, these understood and misunderstood, as I said, the parking, and thus should be clearly explained before taking action recommended. I think somewhat is your position, Kathy. I'd like to know more about this before I take any further action.
Okay, and then they meet tomorrow morning. I'm going to be attending the meeting. I don't know. I'm getting the impression that DID is not as engaged on this as maybe they need to be, in my opinion.
That's not just the DID. Everybody I talked to, I had to educate them before I could talk to them.
Yeah, right. And then that goes for the zoning, the restaurant bars things. There's not a lot of awareness of that. So it'd be interesting to see what comes up tomorrow. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, are we actually voting on this now, or are we waiting until we get back to Peter? Like Ken seemed to be suggesting?
Pushing the timeline, I don't know.
Yeah. What,
I mean, I guess you could draft it.
I don't have any substantive edits. I think you explained it. I might make a couple word suggestions or something. But I would be willing to approve it with Peter and David's, final, I guess it's going to go out under this letter under David.
Okay,
I mean, this is
I move
from the board.
approval, we adopt the draft parking proposals with the consideration of making minor changes as they come in before noon time tomorrow, Thursday, January 4th.
Second.
Both
of us did. It was a tie.
all in favor?
Aye.
Right?
And we can call you Peter.
Yeah, oh, yes. If the line's busy.
Don't leave a message.
Oh, okay, the next are transportation priorities. May I was.
Go ahead. because I've
Okay,
been out of town for a while.
yesterday, the, transportation group, Albie, I'm forgetting her soon, they presented, the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is, and they presented, priorities of essentially roads, I guess. for lack of a better term.
Transportation project.
And there, from a DSCA standpoint, there were a couple notable things. Fruitville appeared on their list as, in one category, as a #1 priority. And that's a change, and I think something DSCA has lobbied, supported for a number of years. That's a very positive thing.
Are they talking about Fruitville west of Washington or east of Washington?
East, west.
I guess maybe
Yeah,
the county is
then
working on
it
it.
becomes county area. The other thing they've done is Boulevard of the Arts and 10th are on there, but they separated those projects. They were at one point joined. Maine is on there as a priority. And the intersection of Boulevard of the Arts and 41 is on as a #1 or #2 priority. So I think,
Is Ringling on as a priority too? I thought it was.
you know what, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But the commission kind of adopted this. To me, the addition of Fruitville was significant, and the other ones seemed to make sense, priority-wise. The one I spoke during public comment period, saying, can we get on with the planning for these? I mean, if the funding is down the road, excuse the pun, is there money to do what we can in the design standpoint? So as we look for money, we've got designs that have moved along. There seem to be an indication that would maybe be considered based on revenues being higher than anticipated. Anything else transportation-wise? Zoning committee, the restaurants, bars, and nightclubs. Victor, we had our Zoom call with the mayor. She has not. I followed up twice to see she had committed to us to have a follow-on meeting, and I have nothing calendared at this point or even proposed. You will have seen, lots of things in the newspaper and everything else behind the scenes. This is to be coming back to the commission on the 16th. So it's coming soon. So I will follow up with her tomorrow. She was not well. Liz was not well. She participated by Zoom yesterday, so maybe that's part of the issue.
I think there's been a very positive reaction to this, two sessions, certain sessions that are going to take place on 14th and 28th. And then subsequently the second set and the next one. A lot more people want to come to this than I ever expected. We should be prepared, they should be prepared for questions, which you may recall was an interesting issue that's mentioned when we last met on this issue.
I'm not following you. 14th and the 28th?
The session's supposed to be with architectural group.
Sarasota.
Yeah, architectural Sarasota.
Oh, okay, the 24th, I believe.
Yeah.
24th.
Yeah.
Yeah, forgive me.
Yeah, okay, yep, Yep.
And there will be, I can assure you, there are a number of questions, and I recall that there were some discussions on how they were gonna handle that.
Okay. By the way, I reached out to Howard Davis on, what we could do to help facilitate tours and stuff, and he hasn't gotten back to me, so, let me see what I can do. I mean, we've been really promoting the heck out of it, and I think we should have good, attendance.
Howard says he has 200 signed up already.
Oh, okay. Wolfie's restaurant signage, I don't know how we want to get into that. That's more of an RDA thing, and that is on the agenda the 10th, along with the Obsidian. And then the speaker series, I'm glad to hear that will be significant. That's wonderful.
Put it up on the screen if you want to say anything to it.
Yeah, no, just I would encourage everybody, it's $40 for 4 sessions, and they tend to be, I think, 6 to 7:30, so the hours should be agreeable with working folks.
At our Ovation.
At our donations. Yep. Yep. Bay Park Conservancy, I don't think there's any news there.
Well, I might just mention that the Bay Park is making a presentation to the ad hoc Van Wezel Task Force on the 29th of this month. And I understand that one of the issues is going to be parking. The agenda is not on the city website yet, but
Okay. And speaking of parking, I'm glad you brought that up. It was mentioned yesterday by Commissioner Jen that the Sarasota Housing Authority did discuss at their board meeting the possible parking structure at the McCowan site. And so that, which has been being discussed a little bit behind the scenes for a year or more, is kind of coming out more into the open. So we'll see where it goes. CCNA, Saturday, Steve Cover is going to be making a presentation on the zoning text amendments for the, shall we call it the corridor? What do you call it? Ron?
Attainable housing and
Yeah.
commercial car.
Yeah, and that has kind of come out of the blue, at least to me, and I'm still not understanding it, but it's a big deal. So that's going to be moving forward and communities. Yes.
Do you know if that proposal from Cover for the higher density down the corridors is going to include community workshops for those residents nearby who currently get community workshops for site plans, or will this be done the same way downtown and there will be no community workshops for those?
I don't know.
So nothing's been revealed yet in terms of what.
Just take a few seconds.
Yeah, they did put community workshops into the zoning text, but it is administrative. So it's kind of a mix right now.
Okay.
So according to the agenda, a community workshop would be required when a development utilizes the attainable housing density homes within the urban mixed-use zones.
And that's what we asked for downtown and lots.
And we were not granted it downtown.
Correct.
One of the reasons not was that the CCNA was working on a new meaningful neighborhood input that would get us some inputs. And I would request as our DSCA rep to CCNA to raise the question of what is being done with the meaningful neighborhood input program that would actually result in downtown residents getting a community workshop with some kind of intensity of use, which is what we had recently proposed.
Yep. Okay. For consistency. Okay, Rosemary Park. I'll be darned, they're out there, they broke up the sidewalk, the old sidewalk and the apron, they're pouring concrete today. They're putting in conduit for electrical lines and irrigation, so they're at it.
They were working Monday.
Yeah, they sure will. Okay, Any, with that said, Annika, can you help with platinum members, or we got some?
Yes, we got some platinum members here. They help support this organization, so I want to introduce them. We'll start with Michelle. She's with Citibank.
And with the new news for the new year, okay? Okay.
Michelle Sabowski, City National Bank of Florida, headquartered in Coral Gables. So we can help with all of your association banking needs, reserve accounts, operating accounts. We are lending, so if there's any projects or repairs coming up on the horizon, we can certainly discuss that with you. So we serve over 4,000 associations throughout the state.
Reba?
I have a similar story. I'm from Cadence Bank Association Services, and we do work together to help each other. If one bank cannot do something that somebody's looking for, then we're happy to exchange that information. So we're co-conspirators, I guess you could say. But we do offer the same things, and maybe a little bit more. We offer the depository accounts, checking, savings, money market accounts for your reserves, CDs, and then for those whose documents allow, we also have an investment services group that can place your funds in T-bills if the rates are attractive at that point in time. We also do lending for any of your projects that are coming up. So we like relationship banking with our associations, and we like to come alongside you, look at the long-term picture, and see if we can be a partner to help you fulfill those projects, those dreams, those wishes for your community. So feel free to reach out to us. My name again is Rita Jackson. And I also brought Kristen Lynch, who is in the retail area.
Yes, so I'm the branch manager of the Cadence branch right downtown on South Links. And so we really pride ourselves in personalized service. So when you walk into our door, it's kind of like I'll equate it to Cheers. We know everyone's name and we greet you by name, and really pride on finding ways to really help you both on the lending side, but also the deposit side. So I love the opportunity.
Thank you.
Paul?
Sure. So Paul Schott with Serpro of Sarasota. So we had a very exciting 2023, very successful. We integrated the South Sarasota franchise into ours. Completely changed over the employees, brought everybody up to speed. As a result, we doubled the size of our organization. We tripled our revenue as customers who were previously served in South Sarasota seem to be coming back to us in droves. So we're very excited about that. Our next step now is to get into the construction side. We have a contractor license, and we are starting to build out our restore side of it. So the build back, once you have a disaster, you need to put it back together. So we're going to be entering into that market, and that's going to fuel our future growth there. So we're on the move. Two other things. One is we have an SRQ VIP social that you have heard me talking about for the last couple of months. We're having our next event on Thursday, January 25th. We're moving it from UTC Mall. We're moving it downtown to 1592 Wood-Fired Grill. Free parking right behind there in the garage. So I am personally inviting everybody here to come down. You'll get invitations. So mark that down, January 24th, from 4 to 6 p.m. People that come really like it. So I think you would enjoy it as well. The second thing is, on a monthly basis, we conduct a lunch and learn with 8 other vendors. We have some great topics coming up. It's complimentary lunch at Marina Jack, and that is from 11:30 to 1 o'clock on the second Friday of every month. We'd love to see you there. And that's it. Thank you. Thanks.
I think that's all.
Okay. Any member rep brief comments, please? I know we're running a little bit over in time. Are there any comments? Jim, anybody? Jim's? Becky? All right, with that said, our next board meeting will be Wednesday, February 7th, and our guest speaker is going to be Mark Smith, the county commissioner. We have not engaged, as I understand, and Peter, thank you for the suggestion. I think that's an interesting suggestion with transportation and TIF and those kinds of things to make Mark, who's really been pretty engaging kind of guys at CCNA and really approachable. I think it'd be kind of interesting to get his perspective on all things. With that, unless there's anything else, let's consider ourselves adjourned.